welcome to this demonstration of CapLinked. So I've logged into the platform itself, and I'll just point out so that we see this throughout the demonstration that I'm logged in as Bill Seibert. So this is our demo account, this is our demonstration user. Everything we're seeing in here is just dummy data for demonstration purposes. But again, you'll see Bill's name pop up here and there, and that's why I point that out. So we've logged in using our email address. That becomes our login credential. So no matter how many workspaces we've got, so long as we've been invited either as a user or we're an administrator on Workspaces, again, as long as we've used our email address for those, we'll see all of those workspaces showing up here on our dashboard. So in the example of an investment banker, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, if you've been invited with your email address, you'll see all of those workspaces here. I'll also point out that we do have a tab over here for workspaces. So there are some use cases where you could have dozens or even 100 or more workspaces. And from here, you can come into this tab and search for those workspaces by name. Also, while we're on the dashboard, I'll point out that we do have the ability to bulk invite users into the platform. So we can invite team members, workspace administrators, and at the bottom here we have workspace members. So assuming you've set up your workspace and you need to invite, say, 80 people as an example, you can come into here and do it. So what you would do is click the Add Many. Up here we can do individual people by just putting in their email address, the first and last names. They're optional. But if we wanted to add many, we could just click this button. And in here, we can copy and paste a list of contacts simply separated by commas up to 100 at a time. And then we would select the workspace we want to put them into, the group within that workspace, and this will make more sense as we get into the workspace itself. And then what time limit we have before these invites expire, put in a custom message, and we can send those invites. So again, I just wanted to point that out while we're on this page. So let me exit out of here, and I will go back to my dashboard. So once we are looking at all of our workspaces, I'll point out as well that we do have a news feed showing up in the right column, and this is any activity occurring within any of the workspaces that you're a member of. As we click into workspaces, we'll continue to have a news feed, but those will be unique to each of those workspaces. So I'll go into the Aquatech Fibers workspace initially. On this one, I'm set up as an administrator, so you'll see all the functionality that I've got with those rights. So as we come into it, this is a confidentiality agreement that's being presented. This would be your document. So it is optional. You don't have to have any document here, so people would just log in and go directly into the workspace. It could be a very legal looking document such as this, non-disclosure agreement, etc. Or it could just be simply a one-page PDF that simply reminds people the information you're seeing is confidential, and they have to agree to it and submit here at the bottom. So in this case, I would simply have to click agree and submit it. While I'm here, I'll also mention though that we have the option when people come in and see this for the very first time, they have to key in their signature. So they'd see the box to enter that here. They would key in their name. That then gets burnt to the document, and the document is hosted on CapLinked with their signature on it. So if they ever say that they didn't see, sign, or submit that document, you've always got proof that they did. So again, in this case, I've seen it before, I've signed it, and now every time I come in, I do have to agree to it and submit it. That also is an option. So again, you can only have them have it set up so that they see it once, sign it once, and then never again. So quite a few options around something that's fairly simple but important to cover. So I'll submit that, and once I do, we will come into the workspace, and I've landed on the Overview tab. So when you first come into the workspace, obviously all of this would be blank. There would be no content here, and we would generally go into the Settings tab to start establishing that and laying the foundation for our users. But I'll just point out a few things while we're on this page as well. So first off, I just want to point out that when you come in the first time, you will be in draft mode. So during this time, you can do all of the work you need to as an administrator, uploading your content, laying the foundation as I talked about, creating groups, adding users, setting permissions, and even sending invites. But those invites you send, they'll be staged until such time as you do push it into a published mode, and then those invites go up. So reason being for that is that while it's in a draft mode, your users can't come into the workspace. So you don't want invites going out, them trying to come in, and they can't do it. So again, you do all of the work, and when you're ready to go, just hit published, click OK, and any of those staged invites would be sent out immediately. So again, on the Overview tab, I'll just point out that in this case, we have a CapLinked marketing video here. Excuse me. This is an optional block. So if you didn't have a video, this block just disappears, and the content below it would just move up the page. And the content you're putting here would probably tell people, if it was an asset sale, a little bit about the asset, the financial overview, some of the other specifics. You might also tell people where within the workspace, which folders they may find particular content, specific documents, and those types of things. We've got the newsfeed, as I mentioned, showing up down the right column. Because I'm an administrator, I'll see documents that have been uploaded either by users or by my peers. I'll see new users that have accepted invites and those types of activities. And then we've also got some custom links that are showing up here in the left column. So these links, again, they're customized by yourself. You don't have to have any links. But again, in the example of an asset sale, perhaps you would have a link to the company's website. Maybe there's some recent news articles. So you could have each of those links showing up here. And again, that is all done under the Settings tab, which I'll go into now. So as I land in the Settings tab, we'll see here at the top that we do have multiple tabs available to us. Several of these you may not have to do anything with. Under the General, there's just some options here, and if you're a frequent or regular user of CapLinked, many of these would be the same every time, so you're not really making many changes to these, but I'll just quickly run through each of these and what they are. So the first one is sending notification emails to Workspace members. So the system is defaulted to send notifications when you upload new content. So as an example, myself, every morning I receive an email at 7 a.m. It shows me all of my workspaces and any new documents that have been uploaded to those. Your users do have the ability to increase the frequency of those messages, or they can turn it off entirely if they want to. Also note that with these notifications turned on, they only go to users that have had new documents uploaded that they have access to. So you don't have to worry about emails going out every day saying, hey, there's nothing new today. The second one is to set the Files page as the home page instead of the Overview tab. So when we logged in, we landed on the Overview tab. If you check this box, it means when somebody first logs in, they would land in the Files tab instead of the Overview tab. The third one is to disable the Q&A feature on the workspace. So you can turn off Q&A functionality, but under every document is a box where the users and even administrators can ask questions. When a response is provided, it also shows up below that document. And then we've also got the Q&A tab that they'll have, and under that they'll be able to see any of their questions and answers as well, pardon me. And I'll just point out at this point as well that your users, they are invisible to each other, they're anonymous, so they don't see each other, the questions that have been asked, or the answers that have been provided. But there is the option to add items to an FAQ document if you thought it was a question and answer that others should see. And that would assume that that user hasn't identified themselves or their firm in the question that they've asked. The next item, number 4, is the hide file indexes from Workspace members. So when you drag and drop all of your content into CapLinked, it will automatically be numbered. So your parent folders could be 1 through 10, and as it descends through subfolders and files, it would be 1.1, 1.2, etc. So in some cases, people will choose to hide that indexing from users, and that could be if you're not showing them everything. So in the example of 6 parent folders, if they saw 1, 2, 5, and 6, they might wonder where 3 and 4 are. So that may be why you choose to hide that file indexing. The fifth one is hiding file versions and description badges from members. So if you pull in a file with the exact same file name as it had previously, a green badge will be placed beside it with the letter V and a number. So if you leave that visible, your users may see V3, and they would know that that's the 3rd version of that document. They wouldn't be able to interact with the prior documents, download them, any of those types of activities. They just know that this is the most recent version of that document. For yourselves as administrators, you would always see that badge, and you can also go in and interact with that document. So you can view it, download it, or even make an old one current again if you wish. And then the final one is just requiring that digital signature on the disclaimer document if you've got one. So this means that when somebody logs in that very first time, you've got a disclaimer document, they do have to key in their name before submitting it, and that again will be burned onto the document and hosted on CapLinked. As we scroll down the page, this is the custom overview text that we saw under the video on the Overview tab. So this could be copied and pasted in from elsewhere. Then you could carry on and just do any final editing that you need to do to it. I can highlight and just make those bold, do whatever I need to in this. Fairly straightforward. Below that, these are the custom links, again, showing up in our left column over here. So when you first come in, there wouldn't be any. You would just start adding them with this hyperlink at the bottom, add another link, pardon me. And then on the side here, you can see blue arrows where we can move items up and down. Obviously, the red X is to delete those. And then scrolling down, we see the Save Workspace Settings. So once you've done all of this work, you've entered the overview content, do make sure to click the Save Workspace Settings button. You don't want to navigate away from this tab, otherwise that work will be lost. So click Save, and then you can carry on with the others. So the second tab is for the overview video. So we had one already uploaded. So in this case, it gives us the chance to replace or delete that video. If we didn't have one, we'd have the option to upload one for the first time. I'll just point out that if you check this box, it means that every time somebody lands on that overview tab, that video will play automatically. Also point out that it is MP4 compatible only. So if you are uploading a video, just make sure that it is in that format before doing so. The third item is your manage disclaimers. So you can have multiple disclaimer documents here. So if you had specific NDAs that were pre-negotiated with firms as an example, you could go into the assign disclaimers and then assign that firm specific NDA to them. You can also go into the assign disclaimers and opt yourselves out. So as administrators, you don't need to see that document perhaps as you come into the workspace. So you just opt yourself out doing that. And over here we can upload new disclaimers as well. The top one is the one we saw, but again, by highlighting any of these, I get the option to delete or make that default. And then one more item here is just the checkbox here. This is the one that does require them to see and acknowledge that every time they come into the workspace if you have a disclaimer document. The fourth item, your workspace branding. So CapLinked for enterprise clients can be fully white labeled. With that, we replace the CapLinked logo up here in the upper left. We can change the banner colors. As we scroll down, we can also see that we've got a email header that can be added. So we can integrate with your email servers, meaning that any communications you send from within CapLinked will come as an email from you instead of an email from support@caplinked.com. And then if a logo is uploaded here, this will be dropped onto that message as well. And right down to the bottom here, we've also got a little favicon, and this is the one that shows up on the tab of your browser. That can be changed as well. So again, white labeled 100%. And then finally, the last tab is for the workspace logo, and that's the one just to separate each of your workspaces when you're looking at your dashboard from each other. So in this case, this is Aquatech Fibers. Had I clicked the update logo button here, it would have brought us into the same tab, and this just allows us to select that little image to separate each of those workspaces. So from here, I will go back into our Files tab. So under our Files tab, I will just point out initially, before we get into the folders that we've got here, down the left column, a couple items. First of all, we do have your trash bin. So if you ever delete items, don't fret and think that they're gone forever. We do have the ability to restore from here. So if you had a couple items that you deleted, you could simply select those items, come over to the list of folders and subfolders, and you can pick a specific place that you need that to go to and simply restore it. So obviously any of those folders and subfolders you could select, and we do have the ability to empty the trash. Once you do that, they are gone for good. Also pointing out that we do have the signed disclaimer documents here. So somebody, if they had denied seeing, signing, and submitting, you could simply come in here, find that person and the document, hit the blue drop down, and download that disclaimer document and prove that they did actually see that. Okay, let's come back out to the All Files view, and as we come into here, we'll see all of the parent folders that we currently have set up. And I'll click into one of these just in a moment here, but first I wanted to point out down the left column, we do have quick navigation. So by that I mean you can click throughout any of the folders and subfolders rather than clicking a back button going to that master view initially. So we can just scroll through at any of those in navigating all of our folders and subfolders. Back into the initial folder, I'll just point out a couple of those items that I talked about under the Settings tab, one of them being the version badge. So we can see that some of these have them V3, V5, V2, etc. So I'll just highlight this row which has the V4 badge beside it. And this is where, as an administrator, again, I'm able to see those prior versions of the document. So I can view, download, or even make an old version current again. This is not something that your users would see. At the top is just a thumbnail version of that. You'll also see that many of these items here in our demo have the letter I showing up in a little blue circle. And as I hover over those, it just gives me some additional content. So this allows us, if we had file names that aren't very descriptive, in this case, this 107 small PDF document, that really doesn't tell us anything about the file. And this would allow us to put in content so somebody could hover over that and see what's in that file without actually clicking into it. So to update any of these or to add it to any of these, we just need to highlight one of the lines. And as we come over to our right column, we see the description and this edit button here. And as I click that, I can just type in more content, hit the check mark. And as I come back over here and hover over it, you can see that that's updated immediately. So this can also be done at the folder, subfolder level, as well as the files as we see here. So let me go back out to my All Files view. If you wanted to download anything, we could do it at a folder level. Once we click an item, then the download button that we see up here is you're able to click that and download content. Just uncheck that. Once you're done a deal or you're going to close out your workspace, if for perhaps regulatory purposes you need to pull down all of your content, you've got the drop-down menu here available. So you can click on that, download all of your files, download your index report along with it, and then again for regulatory purposes you may need to pull down all of your activity. We'll go into the activity tracker in a little bit, but in there you'll find all of the occurrences within the workspace, any activity that has happened. Again, let me just, sorry, I just sorted those. Clicking on the top of each of these columns does sort them. Go back into my initial folder, and if I wanted to download just a couple individual items, I'll show you how that's done. I can highlight these 3 items. Now we can click the download button. As I do, it gives me a couple options here to receive an email when it's done or to convert anything to PDF that isn't in that format. And then I just hit the download button. So this opened up into a new tab. It brought me into my downloads tab, and this will be staged as a zip file. Once this zip file is complete, we can download it to our computer and start using it. So again, we are administrators, so we always have the right to download. With your users, you may or may not grant them permission to download documents, but their functionality would be the exact same as what we've just seen here. So that is ready. I can click download and start using that. So back out to the files view, let me go to the all files. To begin uploading content, we do have to be within a folder. So we've currently got 10 folders here. What I'll do is just create a brand new folder. So I will call this new folder 1, and I will create that. And that's been produced at the bottom already. So here with new folder 1, if I needed to change that, I could just double click in beside it, backspace, change that to 2 and hit enter, and that's been changed. The same goes for indexing. If I wanted to change any of the indexing, that's all automated. It happens instantly. So if I wanted to take this Q3 folder and change that to the second item, I can hit 2, hit enter. That's going to move up, and all of the content, subfolders, and files will already have been indexed as well. So really simple to make that change. So now that we want to upload some content, I'll click into that new folder that we just created. And as I enter that, we'll see that it is empty, but we've got the ability to upload. So I'll click the green upload button. This opens up this view for me, where I see that we can integrate with Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive. And this just via the API and your user credentials allows you to pull documents directly from those platforms. We can also choose a file from a file explorer, but I do have a couple folders off screen here, and I will just grab these and pull them over and release them. So as I do this, just know that when you pull in all of this content, we are going to be able to retain all of the folder, subfolder, and file structure. So you don't have to worry about manipulating and moving content once you do bring it into CapLinked. That's all going to be retained for you. And just to show you that, as I click into one of these folders, this first one, click on that once, it opens up, and we see that we have a folder in here. As I click into that one, you'll see that there's a file in there as well. Clicking back out here, these top 2 items are still grayed out. When we went into this last folder, you may have noticed that it was blue already, but these are being processed as it says now. So what we do is perform OCR, optical character recognition scanning, on all the documents coming in, and that means in the future that rather than just search on file names, you could actually come up into the search files and folders field and search based on the content of those documents. And if you hit this drop-down menu, this allows you to get a little more granular with those searches as well. Okay. And then also when I upload new content, we get this blue banner that's opened up at the top. And this would allow me to notify members that I've just uploaded some new content. So if I click this, it's going to bring us into our Updates tab, which is here. And then the actual files that were uploaded, the links from those will also appear in the message I'm about to send to the groups of people within the workspace. So here you'll notice that we only have administrator groups. This was a brand new folder we created, so none of our existing groups actually have access to it yet. If they did, then we would see them listed here, and we could select groups, or we'd be able to back those out and default it to all permission members at that point. The subject line would be entered, the message, and as it says here, send as an email, so it's going to come as an email from you, and you'd be able to send that update. So again, because it's going to include the links to those documents, the users just have to click the link. If they're not already logged into CapLinked, put in their credentials, and they'll go straight to the documents. If they are already logged in, they just need to click the link, and they'll go straight to it as well. Okay, so back out to my files view here. At think I've covered everything over here that I wanted to. Just mentioning there is move and copy functionality. So if you did need to move items, I could click into a folder, and much like our trash bin, we selected items, and then if I click move copy, this would allow me to select the folder, subfolder, wherever I want that to go, and just move or copy it there. I'll just cancel that at this point. Okay, so let's go into our permissions tab now. So permissions is where you determine what groups you're going to have, the users you're inviting, and then the permissions they have, what they're going to be able to do and how they'll interact within the workspace itself. So I'll go ahead and create a new group, clicking the blue button, and we'll call this one new group number 2. If I was in an example where we were on the sell side of an asset and we were inviting in 5 potential buyers, we would probably create 5 separate groups, one for each of those. In that case, we'd set up the first one, and for the rest of them, the last 4, we'd be able to come in and select that first group that we had created and give them the same permissions. We're probably giving them the same permissions or similar, and when I do that, it will just duplicate it over, and if I need to make some final edits to the permissions, I can. In this case, I'll just leave it at customized, and I'll create the group, and this will be able to allow me to create these permissions from scratch. So from here you see that we are in new group number 2. We've got the ability to grant viewing, downloading, or uploading rights. And then if I expand these folders, you'll see what this functionality looks like. So if we look at the initial folder 1, this parent folder number 1, if I grant viewing rights to the parent folder, it's going to give that right to every subfolder within that as well. If I wanted to give download rights but only to a few select folders, I can go ahead and do that as well. And let's assume we don't want to give any upload rights into anything within that folder. As I collapse this, we can easily see that the solid green circle with a white check mark means full viewing, the green check mark means variable downloading, and then the red circle obviously means they have no upload rights. And I can just continue with this process. It's intuitive, so that if you give somebody either uploading or downloading rights, it automatically gives them viewing rights. So you don't have to worry about making any errors with that. So I would just carry on through this process. And I don't have to click a save button once I'm done with this part of it. That part's done. As we look over to the right column though, I'll just point out a few extra things here, security settings that you may want to consider as well. So if you've granted download rights to documents, what we can do is enable DRM, Digital Rights Management. So what this will do is convert any documents into a PDF that aren't already in a PDF format. It's going to apply a watermark to those, and then the user that has downloaded it would not be able to send that to somebody else to use or open. They can't print that document, and at any point in the future you can actually revoke their access. So you could either remove them from this group, delete this group, or expire this group's access. And even though they've downloaded those documents, they'd no longer be able to open them. They've been rendered useless at that point. The next one is the customized watermark settings for this group. So if we click into this, it's opening up a new tab for me, and we'll see what this watermark looks like. We've got it in 3 separate positions on the page, and this is just an example of it here that shows up as we make edits to it. So if I click into the top watermark, just double click on 12 and change that to 22. I can change the coloring of it, opacity and rotation obviously. The positioning can be adjusted on the page. And then most important are the dynamic elements of the watermark. So I mentioned before I'm logged in as Bill, and you can see Bill Seibert's name here, the email address I used, the IP, date and time, and then we've also got this piece of custom text that's showing up here. So you can deselect any of these if you wish, but again, just know that those are dynamic and they're capturing the actual details of the person that's logged in. And then once you've set each of those 3 watermarks as you want them, just click the green Save Settings button, and that's done. And then back over to this group that we're just setting up now, one last item I'll point out while we're here is the expiring of the workspace access. So what this allows you to do is select a date in the future to terminate their access to the document. So if we've given people 90 days as an example to look at these documents to review, I could come in here, scroll forward 1, 2, and 3 months, select the 8th of that month and save it, and that's automatically going to expire them at that time, as it says here in the top in this blue banner. So once I've set all of that, now I'm ready to go and invite my additional members. Now just keep in mind, again, we set up one group. We've got some other ones here for demonstration purposes. If I was just doing this for the first time and we'd had no other groups, we'd set up the first group, invite the members to it, do the second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on for each of those potential buyer groups in the example of investment banking and selling an asset. So I'll go ahead and click the invite members now. And as we come into here, we see that we've got a list down the middle. So we are inviting these people to new group number 2. We'll show you that a couple times to make sure you're getting them into the right place. If you've invited people in the past within this workspace and you're going to add them to another group or add them again, you can simply come in here and I can click somebody and add them over here. I can import from a CSV. We've also got the ability to integrate with Salesforce, and this simply connects to your address book within Salesforce. And I can also come into here and, oops, pardon my typing, I missed the tab button there. And sorry about that, there we go. There we go, okay. And I put that in, add them, and that's just gonna continue to build my list over here. So again, once I've got this established, all the people that are required for this group, again, it could be as many people as I need. Now I can go ahead and review the invite. So I'll click the blue button here at the bottom. One more time, we confirm for you that you are not adding them to new group number 2. You probably have a name that's a little more unique than that. The 2 people that I am going to add to it. And then over here, I can add my custom message. So I can copy and paste this from elsewhere. I can draft it from scratch. If, again, I'm going to invite additional groups, if I've created a message and I want to use it again in the future, I can click this Save Message button here, and in future, it will appear in a drop-down menu. So I'd be able to select that message from here. I can still make some final edits to it before I actually send that out. So once I'm ready and I'm happy with it, I can click the green Send Invites button, and those are going to go ahead and be sent. Okay. So this will show me the 2 people that I just invited, and obviously at this point they are pending. As I showed you when we first came into the dashboard area, we can set the expiry term for these at different times if we wanted to. In this case from here, these are set for 14 days. So if you've just gone into the process of inviting all of your users today, maybe towards the end of the 2-week period that these would expire, you want to come back into the workspace, and you could do this at any point if you just want to constantly send them reminders and get them in. But if it wasn't that urgent, you wanted to, you could wait towards the end of that 2-week period and just click on the All Members view here. And if you click on Status once and twice, that's going to put all of your pending invites at the top. And from here, I can hit this drop-down menu and just send gentle reminders to each of these folks that they do need to come in and create their user credentials. I can also create a manual invite, and with this, if somebody knew that they were to have got the invitation but they didn't, maybe a firewall blocked it or they deleted it inadvertently, clicking this would produce a link that you can copy and paste into an email and just send to them manually. And then also while we're here, I'll just point out that we also have our administrators. So I'm an administrator. We've got 2 fellow administrators here. So this is where you would be able to invite fellow administrators or additional administrators. And if you needed to at any point, you could also delete an administrator, just highlighting that person, coming over to the right column and hitting the red Remove from Group button. Okay, so that kind of covers the permission settings end to end. I'll go into the Updates tab now. And under Updates, we did come in here previously when we uploaded some documents, and it allowed us to notify folks that things had been uploaded. This would just allow me to send a message at any point. It makes it easy. So I'll click the New Update, and in this case we do see all of the groups that we have within the workspace. So as I mentioned earlier, we could select specific groups, or we can back all of those out and it's going to default to all members. I can just put in my message and subject line and send that update again as an email. This just saves you having to go out to your email platform, create the list of recipients, and send it from there. So it just saves a little bit of time for you. Now before I go over and click into the Q&A tab, let me just quickly come back into the Files tab, and I'll show you where your users and administrators can ask their questions. So as I click into a document here, click into this one. This is actually an image file, JPEG. But as I scroll down, we can see that image here. And again, administrator access, so we don't see watermarks on this. Your users would if you have that set up. But I also wanted to point out that we do have the activity tracker on a document level from this view. So you can see all of the people that have looked at it, the duration of time that they've looked at it. If anybody's downloaded, all of that content will show up in that column. And then as we scroll to the bottom, we can see that Bill at some point asked a question. He answered himself, and then the question box continues to be visible. I can continue asking questions about this specific document. And once they ask those questions, they'll be able to go into that Q&A tab, and here they'll see their questions and their answers. As administrators, we're going to see any pending questions, and if I click into one of these, I would be able to simply provide the response to them here. I mentioned earlier too that we have the ability to add this to an FAQ document if we wanted all users to be able to see that question and the answer. And then here we see all of our answered questions, any that have been added to FAQ, and then finally we've got assignments. So for assignments, a couple uses for this potentially. If questions are coming in, you can just leave this and not assign any groups. It means all of you that are administrators are going to get all of those questions coming in. One example though may be if you had a group of lawyers, perhaps you want to assign them to Christine because she's general counsel, so you assign Christine. She's going to get all the questions from that group. Again, it just depends if you assign these other groups to anybody or you don't assign them, you'll all get those questions coming in. That's up to yourself. The other option is, in the example of an investment banker, oftentimes we may have the analyst perhaps wants to have all of the questions coming to them and they will distribute those as required. So they would go through the process just of selecting each group, selecting themselves, and quickly assigning that, doing that for each of those groups. Again, meaning they're going to see all of the questions coming in first. Nobody else has to be worried about getting additional email traffic that's unnecessary at that point. So pretty simple. That's the Q&A functionality. Now into the activity tracker. So once you open up your workspace with CapLinked, we're tracking every activity that occurs from that moment you open it until the moment you finally close it. We're right now in the Overview tab, so this is everything that's occurring. And you can see that we just looked at that CapLinked presentation folder, we added Michael Jones. Everything we've been doing is being tracked. So you could come into this field and you could select a specific date range, create a custom range, submit that, and then download this content. It comes out in a CSV format, and at that point you can put it into Excel and massage and manipulate that data however you want. We also have some canned reports here at the top. So as an example, we can go into activity by group. So if we were selling a business and we had several potential buyer groups, at any point we'd be able to come into this view and see which of the groups are actually looking at the documents. So we're able to kind of spy on folks and see what they're reviewing, or how much or what percentage of the documents they've looked at, maybe know where to dedicate our time in terms of finding a buyer. And below that is just a numerical version of that same content. And then we can also come down at the file activity level. Just before I go over there, I will point out that from here as well, we can download a report from here. I'll go into the file activity. So same as for here. If you had a document or specific documents that you know people should be looking at, you can click into any of those and you'll see who's been looking at it. So again, Bill's our demo guy, so he's the most active up here. But you see we've got a few extra folks down here at the bottom. It is tracking the duration of time, again, that these documents have been looked at. This also applies if you've set DRM and documents have been downloaded. So it is going to send us all of that viewing data back for downloaded documents when DRM is set. It's also got intelligence built into it. So if somebody opened a document and they left their desk for 2 hours, then came back, it won't accumulate that 2 hours of time as being duration or calculating it as time that it was actually viewed. It is looking for the screen to be scrolling, the mouse to be moving, and those types of activities. And then finally, we can come in at the activity by member. And in here, we'll be able to select somebody and see exactly what they've done. So I'll just scroll down here and find Bill. And when we look at Bill, we see he's had over 8,000 actions within the workspace. At the top, we can see the number of workspace views, the files, and how many he's downloaded. All of that content is available to us as well. So a lot of different reports and information you can get from the activity tracker. So we already went into the Downloads tab. We already visited the Settings tab when we first came in. So really high-level overview, that's kind of CapLinked for the administrator perspective end-to-end. What I'd like to do now is go back out to my dashboard and I'll go into a workspace where we only have user access. So to do that, I just have to click on the CapLinked logo up here. That's going to bring us to our dashboard. And the workspace I'm going to click into is going to be the Great Company Asset Sale. Now before I do click in this one, I will let you know that we won't see a disclosure document or non-disclosure agreement of any kind here when we click into it. And that's not because we accepted the one here. Just remember, all of these workspaces are independent of each other. We won't see one here because one isn't set up. So as we click on it, we're going to go directly into the Overview tab. So you can see this is very scaled down from what we saw previously. We're missing all of these extra icons that an administrator would see. We don't have any links showing up here, no video, very brief summary. And then we've still got our news feed showing up, but this is only going to be documents that I've been granted access to. And this is just telling me the most recent ones, again, date and time order, what's been uploaded. So you wouldn't have to worry about something showing up here that somebody doesn't have access to. I would never click on something and it would say you don't have access to those documents. And then to start reviewing my documents, I can click here or come up to my Files tab and click here. And within this Files view, we'll see that we have 3 parent folders showing up. The indexing has been left visible to me. And as I click into a folder, let's see what we have in here as well. So I mentioned the version badges. So they've been left visible for me as a user. I can see the version badge. I know this is the second version of it. If I highlight this, unlike the administrator, I don't see those prior versions of it. So again, I only know this is the second version of it. Now, oftentimes people will ask me at this point, well, what if I do want them to see that prior version? If that was the case, you would simply change the file name slightly yourself. So you may put your own v2 after the file name before you upload it. Then they would see CapLinked Overview Deck and CapLinked Overview Deck v2 that you've applied yourself. They'd see both versions of it showing up there. And then if I click into something, let's see what we've got here as well. So I've clicked into that document, and I do see that we've got download functionality enabled. I do have the button, so I'm able to download. Obviously, I don't see the activity that's occurred on this document like an administrator would. I am seeing a watermark showing up here. Again, it's just a small gray version of it, but the watermark is there. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, we can see I'm still Bill Seibert, logged in with my email address. I don't have that administrator badge now, but I do have Q&A functionality available to me. So I could ask my question. It would show up here once it's answered, and you may or may not have noticed, but when we're back out here at the main view, we don't even show the Q&A tab until such time as a question is asked or answered. So we want to keep it as scaled down as possible for as long as possible, just to keep this really simple for users, so it becomes just a viewing platform to come in and do what they need to do. The download functionality, very same as what we saw for an administrator. We would request those downloads. We would have them staged here as zip files once they're done. And at that point, we'd be able to pull them down to our device. So pretty straightforward from the user perspective. And if I click on Great Company up here in the top, that's going to bring me back out to my dashboard. So again, we already covered the administrator end-to-end. The user rights, very simple. So that's very quick to show you that. But that end-to-end is CapLinked from both the administrator as well as the user perspective.